Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets, your premier source for Second Amendment news. Going to do an update on what's going on here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This goes to show that even though you might live in a state that is one of the worst regarding gun control, and one of the states that consider themselves one of the safest because of those draconian tyrannical laws, that they're never satisfied and they always try to take more. I want to give a shout out to Goal, the Gun Owners Action League here in Massachusetts. They sent me this hot off the press the other day. It's just taking me a couple days to get to it, but thank you, and listen to these bills. So last week, the Public Safety Committee here in Massachusetts released some bills favorably, meaning that they want them to pass. Now, all of these bills have been sent to the House Committee on the Ways and Means. That's the money committee, how they're going to fund stuff. And these are the bills. I'll have a link in the description to all the bills I'm going to talk about, but know that none of them are good. H2091, it's an act requiring live fire practice for a firearms license. Now, the person who has sponsored this is David Linsky from Natick, Massachusetts. He is about as anti-gun as anti-gun gets here. I think he must have direct ties to people like Michael Bloomberg, because he seems to have all of the Bloomberg-type bills before anybody else does. Now, this bill looks to add to the process of getting a license to carry or permit here in Massachusetts a minimum of at least 5 hours of live discharge of firearms, rifles, and shotguns at a licensed gun club, including the discharge of at least 50 rounds of ammo. So right now you have to take a class anyway that costs $100. Now he's looking to add on to that class, which is going to make it more cost prohibitive for people who just can't afford $100, or maybe even more now, or the added cost of ammunition, because shooting 5 hours gets really expensive. The next bill is H2092, and the title of this one is an act relative to universal background checks for private gun sales. Here in Massachusetts, we go through background checks not only to get your permit to carry, but also to purchase each and every single firearm you ever buy here. So it goes without saying that if you own a gun and you have a license to carry, you have been vetted more than anybody else in the state, more than anybody else sitting on Beacon Hill in Boston. That's our legislature. But this bill looks to make it impossible just to take away the ability for the person-to-person transaction here in Massachusetts. What is that? Well, if I give a background check and he has a permit, he has a background check already. I have a gun that I went through a background check for, and this person wants to buy it. He's already gone through a check. We can just sell it and then do the transfer online here in Mass. This bill is also from David Linsky, the anti-gun king of Massachusetts, and what he wants to do is basically make it so that you have to have another background check for those transactions. Now, instead of me just selling my tool to person B who already has his background check because of his permit, now we have to do it at a federally licensed firearms dealer and pay them. Pay them the fee for them to oversee what we can do right now, currently lawfully, without them being in the process altogether. Makes no sense. H2095, this one is... So here in Massachusetts, we're one of the few states that kept the assault weapons ban, even though it sunsetted federally. As a result, you can have, in Massachusetts, full, standard capacity magazines that existed in the state prior to the Clinton gun ban. And those go for a premium here in the state for no reason at all. If you buy a pre-ban Glock 17-round magazine, they go for $100 easily. It's ridiculous that people charge those prices and get away with a piece of plastic and a spring, but that's what our stupid state has created. This looks to get rid of the ability to own pre-ban magazines. And guess who did this one? David Linsky from Natick again. So under this bill, I'll read you a couple sections of it here. Any person who lawfully possesses a large capacity feeding device pursuant to this section prior to January 1st of 2020, which is already passed, shall apply by January 1st, 2020, which has already passed, or if such person is a member of the military or naval forces of this state or the United States and is unable to apply because such member is or was on official duty outside of the state, you have 90 days to apply for this ability to own something that we could already own. So you have to declare that you own these. It's a magazine registry. You know what, Linsky? Come get them. Oh, and if you are stupid enough to move into this state from a state that has freedom, and you have those standard capacity boomsticks, well, within 90 days of you moving to this state, should this pass, you have to call on Big Brother and let the government know you have them and beg for the ability to keep them. What I want to say is this bill is 100% unenforceable by law enforcement because there are thousands, tens of thousands of these magazines in the state already. H2096 is the next one, and that is an act relative to 3D printed weapons and ghost guns. Yep, this one's by David Linsky as well. Now, H2096 is a little more than simply not being able to 3D print or to build a ghost gun. No person shall use a three-dimensional printer to manufacture any firearm or any part or component that is intended to be used to assemble or manufacture a firearm unless such person possesses a federal license to manufacture firearms and operates in compliance pursuant to 18 USC 923. Also, if you do build something under this within 30 days, you have to notify the Commissioner of the Department of Criminal Justice Information System that you have built it and registered that. And no individual shall knowingly facilitate, aid, or abet the manufacture or assembly of a firearm pursuant to this crazy bullshit. So all those plans that have been online for forever, thanks Cody, if you give somebody a copy of that, they're going to go after you? And how are they going to prove that? Again, a totally unenforceable law. Thanks David Linsky for wasting our tax dollars. The next one is H2045. This is somebody different. It's not Linsky for a change. It's Marjorie Decker. Not much different. And this is an act relative to crime gun data reporting and analysis. And this has to do with trace data and stuff like that. This is like an enhanced registry. We already have a gun registry here in Massachusetts. Every time you buy or build something, you have to register it. And this just looks to get all kinds of data to make it harder for people in Massachusetts to have a Second Amendment. Now, every one of these bills submitted are anti-civil right bills, looking to do nothing for the criminals, only penalize people for following the law. That's how these anti-gunners roll. Now, there was one semi-good bill that was submitted, and it's H2055. It's an act relative to the lawful return of property. This was submitted by Sean Dooley, and this bill looks to address when firearms are taken, whether for a myriad of reasons here, if you get a restraining order and it's expired or removed, you're supposed to get your guns back because you have to have them taken away for the restraining order. If your license is suspended for any reason, such as a restraining order or whatever, or God forbid you're red flagged, you are supposed to surrender ownership of the guns. However, a lot of places turn that into a demand, like the police departments think you have to turn it over to them, and that's not necessarily the case. You can still transfer it. You can still give them to somebody who you is a family member who lives off site. They can secure them too as well, but you have to go through a certain process to do that. But this addresses something that a lot of police departments do here. So if they've taken a lot of firearms for whatever reason, whatever the case is, a lot of PDs don't have the ability to store a lot of firearms, so they usually send them off to like a bonded warehouse. Now, the bonded warehouse is a place that basically puts all kinds of fees on the owner of the firearm, and it turns into a mess. And if your fees exceed the value of the firearm and you can't pay for it, well, then you don't get your guns back. They basically take them as a lien. Well, this bill, H2055, addresses that. It says, notwithstanding any general or special law or regulation to the contrary, any person having temporarily stored a weapon with a private business, including but not limited to a licensed retailer under Section 123 or a bonded warehouse under 129D, shall be entitled to the return of their property. In the event that said property was transferred to and stored by a private business without the expressed written consent of the property owner, no fees may be charged as a requirement for the return of said property. And that's addressing what I just said, how if a police department sends them off to a bonded warehouse, those fees are assessed to the owner when they're not the ones who told them to go there. It also addresses something else here. I'll read it first. It says, notwithstanding any special or general law or regulation to the contrary, any person having temporarily transferred a weapon to a private business, including but not limited to a licensed retailer under Section 123 or a gunsmith, for but not limited to repair, modification, warranty work, replacement, or maintenance, shall be entitled to the return of their property. What does that mean? Well, in that scenario I gave you earlier, say I have a Glock, okay, and they're taken from me for whatever reason or stored in a bonded warehouse. when the case is over and I get my guns back, because that's a Glock and they're not on the handgun roster here in Massachusetts, they're not, because it's like an FFL type deal, they can't transfer that gun back to me. Even though it's mine and they took it, they can't transfer it back because it's not one of the Massachusetts approved firearms. Now, in Massachusetts, you can have any handgun you want. You just can't buy them all from an FFL. There are still legal ways to buy those, but if that gun that's not on the roster that you own legally and lawfully makes it to one of these places, they can't give it back to you currently. This bill would look to fix that. So again, a big shout out to Goal. Mr. Wallace, thank you for getting me this information. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you live in a tyrannical populace of communists that live in our government here, and they just want to put the further squeeze on us when it comes to the gun laws and the craziness we have to deal with here. If your state's just moving to gun control, this is what will happen. They just keep putting that vice on tighter and tighter. So stop them while you can. Get out and vote. This year is a big year for many states. Don't be that one who sits home. Make sure you get out and vote to stop this bullshit, no matter what state you're in. Please like and share the video if you could. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. This is where you're going to get the Second Amendment news, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, no matter where it happens in the country, here on Guns and Gadgets. Till we see each other again, I am Jared from Guns and Gadgets. Be safe, stay vigilant, and carry your weapons. Take care, everybody.